Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. I'm Jim. I'm here with my partner Steve, who's got his Mark Messier jersey on today.
I do. It's hockey season.
What's the significance? I was going to ask. One of the
Well,
best players of all time.
I can't wear a New York Rangers Mark Messier jersey on a beautiful Saturday, fall, autumn day.
You most certainly can, because it's actually gorgeous in New Jersey. It's the 12th day of November 2022, and we felt the remnants of Hurricane Nicole yesterday. But now it's a beautiful day, knocked all the leaves down, so pretty much fall foliage is in the past.
But this jersey is one of my prized possessions
I know.
given to me by my children on my 50th birthday,
Well done.
which seems like it was 50 years ago now.
Okay. So, Steve, let's jump right into it. I got the monologue this week, which, of course, is sponsored by Coriano Trucking, which we have some news about our sponsor later on, unfortunately. But the monologue this week is, I don't know if it's a little early to say this, but a little changing of the guard in college football. Last week was a big week. Tennessee, who you've been on that bandwagon all year, which is rightfully so. But Georgia, everybody kind of forgot about Georgia this year, right? But now they're right in the mix and poised for a repeat. But Alabama, we're probably not going to see them in the college football playoff, which is kind of rare. But let's not dismiss this. Let's call it an off year for them. But Nick Saban will be back. But what a weekend in college football last week. Tennessee loses, right? Clemson loses. Alabama loses, shakes it all up. So now we got Ohio State, which keeps rolling, right? Luke Whippler, possible first round draft choice, anchoring that offense. And what, Michigan snuck in, TCU, and Georgia. What do you think about those four teams right now, Steve?
Well, it was quite an interesting Saturday after we did our podcast last week.
It was.
So Brian Kelly, his first signature win, first year at LSU. We talked about it ad nauseum, the departure from Notre Dame. You have to give him credit. It goes to overtime, and they get down there. Alabama scores first. He winds up going for two. This kid, Jaden Daniels, he has a quarterback. All right. So my first observation about this game going in was Brian Kelly has a level playing field now, right? He's got the horses to go against Alabama. And again, signature win. Georgia, not surprised. Okay. Georgia, I think Georgia goes back to back. I think Georgia's too good. I think Georgia is clearly the number one team in the country.
Wow.
I don't see.
You don't see Ohio State even putting up a fight here?
I did not. Let me finish. I think Ohio State is clearly the second best team. I foresee a Ohio State Georgia final. Now TCU is a good story. I actually read a really good piece on Sonny Dykes, who was the head coach who took over for TCU. He's a Texas boy.
He is.
His father was Skip Dykes, who is a longtime, well-respected Texas coach. But I read a great article on Sonny Dykes about his travels. And he is a disciple of Hal Mumme. If you remember Hal Mumme.
Didn't he coach Duke or Kentucky?
Kentucky. So Hal Mumme is really kind of like a Mouse Davis with this innovative passing game. Hal Mumme is really Hal Mumme was great friends with Sonny Dykes' father. And Sonny Dykes got his beginning under Hal Mumme.
Okay.
But Sonny Dykes, everywhere he's gone, he was just at SMU. And for taking over Gary Patterson at TCU and have them as the number 4 team in the country, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think Sonny Dykes is really a good coach. Yeah. TCU has a big game today against Texas. I got to think TCU is going to beat Texas. But they're there. Okay. Now, do I foresee them winning the national championship? Stranger things have happened. But I think Notre Dame last weekend, statement, the rough start. We talked about Marcus Freeman.
We did.
But to whip Clemson the way they did, they were up 28-0, manhandling them. Clemson, bye-bye.
And we talked about Clemson being a little, they barely got past Syracuse, right, the week before. So
yeah, but this is not Clemson of the national championship. Clemson.
Agreed.
One other thing on Saban. I think the transfer portal or protocol, things like that, it's very even now, right? And again, we've always talked about the SEC being the toughest division in college football, and it clearly is.
No question.
But when you have Alabama, now again, Alabama is traveling to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is what, 8-1 or something, right? Don't be surprised Alabama goes down again. Okay.
It's just not their year. That's all.
Well, it's
We
not
know
their
that.
year because the bar has been raised so high by Saban.
Yep.
Okay, Alabama is still, a great football team. Bryce Young, I swear to God, like the performance he had on Saturday night, he may even be playing better than what his Heisman season was last year.
Yeah.
But they don't have the wide receivers like they've had. Alabama's just produced number ones after number ones after number ones for the
Yes,
past
they
5,
have.
6 years. So that's it. It was a great Saturday of college football.
And it's going to be just as good going forward. We're in the home stretch here. I got to ask you something because is Michigan, Ohio State playing this year?
Of course,
Because I was looking it up and I thought I saw they won't meet until the playoffs.
horseshoe.
Okay, fine.
No, absolutely.
I was going to say that tradition has gone by the wayside too. That would be impossible.
Impossible.
Right. But college football is like I said, coming down the stretch, and Michigan, they're in there too. So we'll see what happens, right? Let's move on to the professional ranks, Steve. Right? Big news story this week, I guess, is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Is this he just got bumped on the elbow, or is this a significant injury for him? And that's going to drive whether or not the Buffalo Bills make it to the Super Bowl. They're certainly going to make the playoffs, but this is a big loss. This guy is probably going to be the MVP in this league at least once, if not more going forward. What do you think that impacts the Buffalo Bills? They got enough horses with Case Keenum or something to get by and make the playoffs?
What do you think? Now, my point about Josh Allen is we always talk about $40 million, $50 million for quarterbacks.
I think at least he earns it. I mean, compared to Kyler Murray and all these guys that don't.
May I finish my point?
You may.
It goes to $40, $50 million. That's why these guys get what they get paid. Okay, to Josh Allen, the top 5.
We know.
So the Buffalo Bills obviously clearly still are, depending on Josh Allen's elbow. Is it a bump on the elbow? They got a bye week, so he can rest, that type of thing. But if it's a significant injury, yeah, Buffalo with Case Keenum. Now Case Keenum has always been a good backup quarterback. So when it comes back, the backup quarterbacks in the NFL, Case Keenum is right up there with, a Don Strock or something like that. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's the archive.
Right.
There.
But, yeah, I mean, come on. Buffalo will not beat Kansas City if Josh Allen's not healthy.
You're absolutely
It's not going
right.
to happen. So
You're absolutely right.
So that's my opinion on that. My point is that's how valuable Josh Allen.
Yep. So let's talk about a couple other moves that happened, right? This big surprise in Indianapolis, which caught me off guard 100%. Frank Reich getting fired. And then Jeff Saturday, now the head coach, goes right from the broadcast booth to, the studio analyst to the head coach of the Colts.
Yeah.
But one thing I did find out about,
I think Jim Irsay's drinking.
Yeah, he's a little off the wall. But anyway, but Saturday, he's all in. And this whole thing, like he's been completely disassociated. Yes, he's never had any coaching experience, but he's been tied with the Colts. This Irsay has been keeping him on the payroll for years. So this was in the making. And now, the season's pretty much gone for the Colts. So, what'd you think of Jeff Saturday moving from the studio to the sideline?
I was stunned like everybody else. Okay, I'm not surprised Frank Reich has been shown the door. I'm not surprised at all, and it all stems again from the last game of last year, going down to Jacksonville, right? And what did they do? They just Carson Wentz. Okay, Irsay's an impatient owner. They're talented, the Colts. Jeff Saturday. When you got a guy like Jim Caldwell sitting on his couch, former Colts head coach, that would have been my first phone call. And don't think Jim Caldwell would have probably taken it.
100%. course.
Are the Colts done? Most likely, yes. But if they win and then again and again, right? Chances of that happening are next to nothing. So Jeff Saturday, listen, great Colt, Super Bowl winning set, underpaid man. Nobody speaks highly of Jeff Saturday. You see him on ESPN game shows and all this
I always
stuff.
liked him. I
Right.
liked him.
But yes, I mean a stunner. Jeff Saturday, please.
Yeah. But a couple other
That's an interim tag if there ever is an interim
Well,
tag.
yeah, but him and Irsay are best buddies.
I
This
get
may
it.
not- He may say, okay, even if you lose the last 8 games, I'm going to give you another shot next year. Build your staff and see if you can make
Oh.
this transition. I think he comes back next year regardless.
Absolutely. Don't be ridiculous.
You hit it on the head. Jim Irsay is a little incoherent these days, to say the least. But how about some injuries on the injury front in the NFL? A couple other things, like Blake Martinez suddenly retires from the Raiders. Apparently, that place is a shit show. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I mean, I even took them for the last time this year, last week, and took it on the chin. So he retires. Rashawn Gary, a guy that we were very familiar with, saw him play in high school, turned into a outstanding NFL player. He's out for the season.
Yeah.
Here's the question I pose to you. Can the Green Bay Packers fix this season before it's too late? And they got a big game against your Cowboys this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Cowboys.
I've been back and forth on this, but I think Dallas will handle the Packers. McCarthy returns to Green Bay. First time we've been back since the Dez catch, which was a non-catch. But again, when we watched the Giants play the Packers in London, I expected the Packers to turn it around.
Me
in
too.
that game.
Me too.
But they don't have the wide receivers. Back to Ari, the stud lineman from he's been hurt all year. They lost another lineman. Rashawn Gary's out. Cowboys defense has been lights out really. I like the Cowboys, so I think I think Green Bay is in for a long season, and I would think by week 15 or so, you sit Aaron Rodgers and you see what Julian Love can do.
I was actually just going to bring that up. Jordan Love.
Jordan Love, I'm sorry.
Right? But I actually sent a text to my Green Bay Packers fan, Abe, and I said, is it time to give Jordan some love here, right? Because Rodgers, apparently he wants out of Green Bay anyway. But he's the one that held out. He's the one that said, I'm the architect. And it just didn't get done. But I'm just wondering whether the season could be salvaged.
No. Not the way it's trending right now.
Right. So you still got to say the Eagles are the clear-cut favorite in the NFC.
I do. I would say the odds-on favorite as of now, subject to change, of course, week by week.
Yep.
Don't be surprised about an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl. Andy Reid going back to playing Philadelphia.
Yeah, and you and I couldn't have been happier when Andy Reid finally won a Super Bowl, right? 2 seasons, was it 2 or 3 seasons ago now?
Andy Reid's a good guy, well-respected, and
yeah,
he's not going anywhere. I mean, Andy Reid's the type of guy. I thought he was like 74. I think he's younger than me or something.
No, he's not.
That's close.
He's got to be 64 or something like that, right? A good coach, NFL underway. So let's take my medicine at least from last week, because I was 1 and 2 in my pick 3.
Before we get to that, I mean, there's some other big stories. The Jets with a huge win over Buffalo. That's a huge story. The Jets, Sauce Gardner, you're not sold on this kid yet, but week by week I am getting sold. This guy is a good football player.
Okay.
The Jets defense is playing well. The Jets are 6-3. Nobody in their right mind saw that. I know I didn't. And listen, if Josh Allen winds up being hurt, the way the Jets are playing, as ridiculous as this may sound, they're in contention for a playoff spot.
I'm not 100% sold on this thing.
I'm just saying they had a big signature win, which is long time coming for Jet Nation.
But the thing that drives me crazy is the way they were 2 weeks ago bashing Zach Wilson like he's this out of control. And he did. He played, he's running around, but this is exactly, he hasn't played 2 full seasons yet. So, and then he comes back, and you're right, signature win for the Jets this season thus far. You and I have been on the fence with this kid. You know, 1 week he looks good, 1 week he doesn't, but I think he's the right person, right? He is the number 2 draft. They're all in on this guy. And I just thought they were bashing him left and right for a guy that's only played probably 15 games in this league.
It reminds me of Eli Manning. I mean, who took more slings and arrows than Eli Manning? But Eli Manning was god awful his first 2 years. And me, you, and our brother Tom, who were the trifecta of our family as far as football knowledge, we were literally this close to throwing him under the bus. And then what happened? This turnaround happens. 2-time Super Bowl champ Giants, MVP.
That we didn't throw him under the bus.
Well, it came about as close as possible.
And I always.
But I think Zach Wilson's ahead of the curve of Eli Manning.
Okay, but this is Daniel Jones's 4th year, and now he's starting to come into his own, or at least it looks that way. That's the other New York headline, right? The Giants are 6-2, coming off a bye week at the Texans. And then they got a big matchup on Thanksgiving against the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to dictate whether the Giants are legitimate going forward. I mean, I think all indications are they're going to make the playoffs here, but I think Zach Wilson deserves more of a little bit of leeway than they've been giving him, because especially with a guy like Daniel Jones, this is his 4th year, and he's played. Yeah, he was hurt for a little while, but so that's great. That's awesome surprises for New York football fans, and I think the Jets are more of a surprise to me than the Giants, to be quite honest. But they had this Xavier McKinney, and he was in Cabo, gets in an accident. He's been playing awesome football for them this year. So
Alabama.
Yep. So you're right. There's a lot going on in the NFL, but let's touch base on our picks. And I was saying I was taking my teaspoon of Clorox. I was 1-2 last week, and that's not like me. But here's my losses, and I didn't possibly think the Jets could beat Buffalo. I really didn't, and I took that on the chin. But and I brought this up because I've never been a David Carr fan, Derek Carr fan, and that franchise is an absolute mess. And they couldn't even beat Jacksonville last week, which what I don't think is even in the discussion as a legitimate team. But so I took losses there. The only one was Carolina, Cincinnati, and Cincinnati. I think Burrow's starting to heat up, and they're going to be just fine going down the stretch. But they ultimately going to have to either play the Bills or the Chiefs, like you said. So those are my losses from last week. Now let me give you my picks for this week. I can't jump on this Geno Smith bus, but I will say Seattle's been playing good football, and he's playing out of his mind. But I like Tampa Bay to get back to 500. I think Brady's going to figure out how to right this ship, because they're not going to go below 500 this year. He didn't sign up for that to happen. So I'm taking Tampa Bay. And Denver and Tennessee. I'm more of a Tennessee fan than I think a lot of people give me credit for. It's the Derrick Henry factor where I'm all in. And I think Vrabel is great. So I like Tennessee. Denver, I think, is just falling apart at the seams. Possibly could fire their coach even before the season's over. So I'm going with Tennessee, and Cleveland and Miami. And interesting game, but I like Miami. And I normally don't pick Miami because I'm not 100% sold on Tua. I don't know if they have enough around them to do it, but Cleveland I don't think much of. And listen, guess who's probably coming back in a couple of weeks, right? Deshaun Watson. So those are my picks, Steve. I hand the mic to you.
I'm going to take the Giants at home against Houston. Houston has the absolute worst rush defense in the NFL.
They're horrible.
Close, so I look for Barkley to go for about $140. Daniel Jones to manage the game. The Giants are home. I like the Giants to go for bye week.
Ooh, this is rare, picking the Giants. Very good. shows.
I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee is, shaking off the cobwebs. They're starting to play real good football. They're home. Denver's a disaster. I think Tennessee is a pretty safe choice there.
Yep.
My third pick, I would say KC is home against Jacksonville. Upset.
Gotcha.
What else am I going to tell you?
No, I don't see any reason why you would go any other way, because I'm not sold on Jacksonville, and I think Mahomes is he's a winner. He's a flat out winner.
But back to the Raiders. Mayock, when they hired Mayock a couple of years ago as the GM, I said, this guy's so overrated. I just saw a stat. It's something like 15 of the 22 top 2 rounds that he's drafted. 15 of 22 are not even on the team.
Oh my God.
It's that bad.
It is that
They
bad.
just released Jonathan Abram, who was their number 1 pick about 3 years ago.
Another number 1 pick cut.
God, I mean, just cut. Why? Because he stinks. Stinks.
Yep.
The Raiders are an absolute disaster.
They are.
They really are.
They really are.
So,
So let's move on, because I caught a little comment from one of our soccer guys that one of the biggest sporting events in the world is coming up, and we haven't really even mentioned it.
because
The World
it hasn't
Cup.
started yet.
It starts in less than 2 weeks.
Okay,
And it's in
Diego.
Qatar.
We were going to get to it. Patience.
So yes, this is just an unbelievably huge event in the world of sports, and you and I can't say we're diehard soccer fans, but we do watch the World Cup, and the U.S. is in it this year. They lost a friendly match to Germany the other day, but here's a couple of things I wanted to bring up, because you and I have talked about, are you a Messi guy? Are you a Ronaldo guy? Right? So I was looking up this morning on something about saying who the top 30 players are in this. And guess who was not on that list? Was Cristiano Ronaldo. Messi, of course he was on that list. But it was suspiciously absent from a list that I thought, do people think, I know there's a lot of young talent. I think the number 1 rated player is this guy, Kevin De Bruyne from Belgium. Right. So the U.S., they got a tough match. They got to play England in this. And I think they call it some Friday. Diego, you'll have to let us know what that is. But the U.S. has got to play Wales, England, and Iran. So, when you put them up against the Germanys, the Belgians, the Frances, I don't think the U.S. men's team has any kind of even possibility. We watched this kid, Christian Pulisic, grow up, right? He was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old player, and now he's the captain of the men's team. It's interesting, but it's going to be hot out there. So I would love to hear from our soccer fans who they think is going to win. Messi and Ronaldo have never won a World Cup, so this stage is kind of interesting. I would love to see either one of them, because Portugal has more good players besides Ronaldo than Argentina has with Messi. So I don't know if it's possible, but this kid Messi is awesome, and we're gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it, and it's gonna be hot out there. Boy, is it gonna be hot out there!
Yeah, I mean, it's the most popular sport in the world. It really is,
without question.
And every 4 years or so, the World Cup or so.
Yes.
And this is big stuff, right? So Messi, listen, you want Maradona status, you got to bring that World Cup home to Argentina.
Yes, it would.
And
be a fitting end to an unbelievable career.
No question. I got to do some homework here. I'm not going to sit here and tell you who's going to win it, or even pretend right now, who the top 4 teams are that could possibly win it.
I'm going to go.
I do know the United States is not winning the World Cup.
I know. Well, I'm going to give you my 2 picks, whatever that is worth. Germany or France. And I know these aren't like a big reach, but there is, they were all Brazil and all these other teams. These are all formidable teams. But France got this guy Mbappe, and he's one hell of a player. He's the next Ronaldo or whatever, that kind of focus figure in.
I'm with you, Rob.
Hey, listen, it's big. We got to talk
You know
about it.
who's not in the World Cup? Am I correct in assuming this? Italy?
Correct. That's big too.
That's huge.
So that's our World Cup take. And send us an email at Sports with Mono and Mono. And Rob, unfortunately, it's something we have to talk about because it's that big.
I mean, what's sad is that Hussein's sons, were killed. And, I got to tell you, Iraq under their tutelage, boy, they really
Let's not make this
they could have been
political.
big contenders.
Let's not make this political.
Talk about two guys that died that
Right.
you wouldn't believe.
But Steve, let's move on to Major League Baseball real quick because the Houston Astros, does this make it legitimate for you? I mean, is this an undisputed Houston Astros were the best team in the league and they won the World Series? I think so.
Yeah, listen, I got no sour grapes this year. Happy for Dusty Baker.
Me too.
But Houston, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. The cheating scandal, but they've let players walk out the door. And what did they do? They immediately filled up the cupboard with studs. This Alvarez guy, like I said, reminds me of Willie McCovey type of player. This guy's a beast. Houston deserved to win the World Series. They were the best team in the playoffs, and Dusty Baker's coming back. So Houston is going to be formidable.
I couldn't be happier for Dusty Baker. He's one of the class acts in baseball for years and years and years. And I'm going to bring something up on random points of interest when we get there about another little baseball item that I saw. But legitimate, and now the free agency thing starts, right? And I'm going to bring this up because, Steve Cohen, yes, he does own the Mets and he does have unlimited funds. But for some reason, I don't know. I mean, these guys all, Walker, Bassett, and DeGrom all opted for free agency. So is it a negotiation ploy to get more money? All indications are Jacob DeGrom is going to be out of New York somewhere. For some reason, I don't think he wants to be there. But this is, just because he's the most wealthiest owner in baseball doesn't mean, they're guaranteed a world championship. We've seen that time and time again. Look at the numbers that the Yankees pay on their payroll. They got a lot of holes to fill.
Well, a couple things on Cohen. Right. From a baseball perspective, does it make sense to resign Jacob DeGrom at age 34 with his injury history, as dominant as he's been when he's healthy? Are you going to pay this guy $50 million a year for 4 years? I don't care how much money you have. This is a baseball decision. Tea leaves say Jacob DeGrom wants to pitch in Texas. So I see the Texas Rangers.
That's the rumor.
I see that happening. And the Mets thank him for his service. And I think from a baseball perspective, let him move on. Okay. Cohen also, talking back and forth with Yankee fans. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what I heard was Boris is Aaron Judge's agent. And I was told that Boris went to the Yankees already and said, give us your best offer because we're not coming back to you. So you better make your best offer.
Well, let Scott Boras talk.
That's exactly Scott Boras talk.
Mm-hmm.
But also with Scott Boras, when he says something, he backs it up. So the Yankees right now, they got their bean counters going. The way I'm seeing it now and the way I'm feeling it, San Francisco is on record. We will not be outbid. Okay, so I see the Yankees putting together a $400 million package. I don't know how many years, 8 to 10,
7,
whatever. It's going to have to be significant, but San Francisco is going to come in with 450. I'm leaning towards Aaron Judge leaving.
Producer behind the curtain, making an appearance.
Sir?
Scott Boras is not the agent for Aaron Judge.
He's not the agent?
Nope.
I didn't think he was, but somebody with credibility told me he was.
Paige Odell is the person. I don't know who she is, but it's Paige Odell
Oh,
Okay.
is the
well, he's still getting 40 million no matter who his agent is.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah,
but for the San Francisco Giants to say we will not be outbid for Aaron Judge, this is where negotiations in baseball. So if the Yankees give them the first offer, that's what the Giants and even possibly Steve Cohen are going to take that number, and they could pay more. So you know, this is where it's going to get interesting.
Cohen is not bidding on it. Him and Hal Steinbrenner are friends. He's not going to drive up the price. He's just not going to.
It's quite possible.
Judge
That's
is
all
not
I'm
going
saying.
to the Mets, folks. He's either going to the Giants or he's going to come back.
And I'm staying with what I thought the whole time. He wants to go down as a Yankee for life. He'll take less a year to do it. But either way, he's going to get 40, 45 million a
He's
year.
going to get 400.
Yeah, which is a lot of money. A lot of money.
Well, yeah, it's the way it is.
But you know, so baseball's wrapped up.
He
Steve,
put
you know?
himself again ad nauseum. He put himself, bet on himself this year, and he deserves.
And he's going to win.
You know, he deserves to get the payday because other guys are making
Roll
big
to
money.
7, right? Roll to 7. So, Steve, well, let's touch base real quick on the NBA because, unfortunately, you know, and we're not even going to discuss the Kyrie Irving situation because the Nets are going to welcome him back. But the whole Ime Udoka thing kind of fell through for some reason. Either that, or there's just more to the story that this is something not even the Nets can overcome from a
Right.
PR perspective.
No, I think some reasonable heads finally got into the office of the Nets and talked to the owner, Joe Tsai, and Marks and said, "What are you kidding? You can't bring this guy in here. Well, are you kidding?"
Well, who got to make that final decision?
The
Not
owner.
Joe Tsai. It
He's
was
the
Kevin
owner.
Durant
He's the
or
owner.
Kyrie
He's the
Irving.
owner. Gotta give him credit.
Yeah,
Somebody got to him and said, "You couldn't possibly.
it's too
This
toxic.
is so ridiculous.
It's too
as it
toxic.
is
We,
now.
not even us.
And
can
you're going to
overcome
bring this guy in to compound things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So you know, rightfully so.
Yep. But look what's going on with the Lakers. They've already gotten pretty much dismissed Russell Westbrook as the cancer on that team and why they don't win. So they sit him down and they still can't win. And Commissioner LeBron, he's all of a sudden he's going to be hurt because he doesn't want to be tagged with them starting. They're 2-9 right now, right?
Good.
And I think clearly the best team.
Loving every minute of it.
Oh, absolutely. But you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, they're again the team to beat. They're off on a roll. And the Boston Celtics are, listen, they got the players. I don't think it's the coach that's going to make or break them. I think they can still get back to the finals if they could beat Milwaukee. But Giannis, this guy is an absolute beast. That's really the only player I enjoy watching in the NBA right now, quite honest.
Well, I love this Ja Morant.
Well, the young guns, I get
Luka
that.
Doncic.
He is a stud. He's no question.
Devin Booker's a good player. You know, there's more than a handful of guys. As far as the New York Knicks are concerned, Julius Randle is back to being Julius Randle. They're stuck with this guy. They should have tried to trade him in the offseason when they could. The Knicks, they won last night. I mean, they're not awful, but you know, RJ Barrett hasn't really gotten off to the way he did last year.
Yeah. Notorious slow starter in the
Well,
season.
yeah, but the Knicks, they're not terrible, but they're not going to do it.
No, they're not.
As far as the league goes, yeah, I mean, it's Milwaukee, it's going to be, the standard cast of characters.
Yep. Usual suspects. As
And I'm happy Harden is still hurt. And things are not well.
Oh,
couldn't be happier.
Boy, that train has fallen off the tracks, But anyway, so the college basketball season just started too.
And we had our first big upset.
We did.
The Temple Owls knock off the Villanova Wildcats.
I know. I got some.
That's a big thing.
I know some Villanova fans that aren't going to be happy
We know
with
a lot
that.
of Villanova people.
Yeah.
More Jay Wright.
But there was an awesome setup yesterday in college basketball. Michigan State played Gonzaga on the USS Abraham in San Diego, and I got to tell you, like the the NHL Classic, right? The New Year's Day Classic outside. That
Winter
was
Classic.
awesome. Winter Classic. This was as cool as it gets.
Yeah,
I
they've
mean,
done this before, but yeah, what a venue.
and that was
Perfect.
Gonzaga, and this kid Timmy, right? Drew Timmy. This kid's probably going to be the player of the year. He's a stud. He's been around for a while too. But it was a great setup, awesome on Veterans Day, and of course we give a shout out to our veterans, and we support their service and thank them immensely. Yeah, but it was a great setting, and college basketball, right? Season's just underway, and I think Rob's going calling the Seton Hall game today. Who survived? Yeah, they actually beat Monmouth in their opener, right, Rob? I think they beat Monmouth anyway. But college basketball is underway. So, Steve, let's move on to our random points of interest. And we were talking about Dusty Baker a little while ago,
Right.
and every time I see a sports documentary, and of course our random points of interest is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. Week after week, loyal supporter of our show. I saw a special on HBO. It was, and again, we've talked about it. ESPN and HBO, they put on amazing documentaries. This one is called "Say Hey Willie Mays." Have you seen it? Just came out, and I've always listened when we talk about baseball and the greatest players of all time. I've always said. I mean, I think obviously Babe Ruth, who I saw a documentary on him the other day, which is also awesome. By the way, the legends and legacies, Babe Ruth, awesome. But this one on Willie Mays was outstanding. And when you talk about well-rounded baseball players and what he went through in that era, the Jim Crow South, and it was just amazing. He is a class act. I've always thought that. I always thought he was great. This documentary is a can't miss. It's called "Say Hey Willie Mays."
And it's going to remind everybody this guy is considered by many, many of the greatest ball players of all time.
Running,
He's the
hitting, throwing, catching, everything. He was just the complete package. And, he played they played at Seal Stadium before Candlestick was built. And then they realized they put this Candlestick Park in the worst possible place because the wind was just brutal, right? The night games were just like playing in Alaska. It was crazy. But what a class act. And right down to the end when Joan Payson of the Mets said, "We want Willie Mays to come back." And Willie Mays was going to retire from the Giants. He realized his time was up. And Joan Payson brought him up. And that was my memory of watching Willie Mays play was the last 2 years with the New York Mets.
he looked like a beer league softball player.
Right. And, the World Series in '73 against Oakland, you could see the kink in the armor starting to happen. But you have to watch this, like what he endured in San Francisco. And when he came, played for the Giants, and then they moved to San Francisco. But the backstory of this was, they even interviewed Barry Bonds and a lot of highlights of his father and Dusty Baker saying, chiming in on what a class act he's been. And it's must-see TV.
I can't even watch Barry Bonds. So anytime he comes on the screen, I turn it off.
But it was the
I
relationship with
understand.
him.
I understand. He's his godson. Barry Bonds and Willie Mays' godson.
Which is why Barry Bonds went to San Francisco after Pittsburgh and the whole thing. But what a class act Willie Mays is.
Yeah.
And I tried to guess, how old do you think Willie Mays is? You know how old Willie Mays is?
He's probably 88.
That's what I said, 88. He's
Okay.
91. And still lucid, still grateful for the opportunity that he's had. And what an ambassador for baseball. You have to see this documentary because it was outstanding. And I also told you there's one on Babe Ruth, which you have to see. You and I both read a book on Babe Ruth by Robert Kramer. Remember him from, right? We had that in Oakland, and I read it twice because it was that good. great documentary, hour-long interviews. I mean, it's dated kind of thing. Interviews with Bill Mazer and Studs Terkel and all these guys. But the legend, the legacy, and the myth of this guy, it was amazing, and he was one hell of a baseball player as well. Yeah. One other random point of interest, Steve, and this is a sign of you can't get away with this stuff anymore. You can't sweep it under the rug. The Boston Bruins signed this kid, Mitch Miller, right, who has this resume of bullying some really weak kid in high school. And I mean, this wasn't just pushing him around kind of thing. This was
kid.
it was absolute abuse, and I think the NHL is gonna avoid this signing and say
No, they are.
there is no room
the
for
Bruins
this.
have already come out. Cam Neely's the president of the Bruins.
But they knew what was in the
Cam
dirty
Neely
sock.
came out and said, "Listen, we screwed up." He said, "It's embarrassing that we did this." He apologized to the family. Once the Bruins realized that they made a mistake, can't have this kid on the team. There's no way. There's no way it would happen.
And we just saw this with the Buffalo Bills, right? That punter,
Yeah,
the whole
so,
thing.
so listen,
Can sports be getting integrity?
I don't think the kid is going to make it to the NHL because he's just too toxic. And listen, we're all society, second, third chances, right? We get that, but the way this was handled immediately, the Bruins saw the backlash of this, and they realized the error in their ways.
But how could they not have expected the backlash?
Because the kid's a talented player. Okay, so I don't think they expected the enormity of the backlash. It could have been the standard 48-hour window period, and then on to new news.
Forgive and forget, right?
Right,
Yeah.
but so the Bruins did the right thing.
They did.
Apologize.
Because this is a brutal backstory.
It is.
if
You'll
you
never
read
hear this guy again.
Right. So, Steve, unfortunately, we have to move on to our notable passing segment, right? And Rob, I don't know, I sent Rob a picture. I wanted to pull it up for our listeners, but Diesel the dog, there he is. Look at the size of this dog, and that dog is the protector of the Coriano trucking empire. And unfortunately, Diesel passed away this week.
Sorry to hear that, guy.
I think he's an Argentinian dogo. And I'm telling you, this is the biggest dog I've ever seen. Sweet as apple pie. And, but had an accident and something happened. But I wish our best to Guy Coriano for his loss there,
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, guy.
Yep. Couple other ones, Steve. We were just talking about the Boston Bruins. Peter McNabb passed away, right?
I remember Peter McNabb like it was yesterday when
Yep.
I went to school at Boston University.
I knew
Peter
you did.
McNabb was instrumental on the Bruins. We're number 8, if I remember correctly, Peter McNabb. And
Single-digit number for
number
sure.
8.
Yep.
Hey, good Bruin.
72 years old, right?
Right. Didn't win a cup, but was a great Bruin.
Huh. Did not win it.
Did not win a cup.
And who was his father? Max McNabb? Was Max McNabb a coach or something? I thought Peter McNabb's father was instrumental in hockey too. Another one from the world of sports, Steve, and somebody that you and I, from a sportscaster perspective, remember vividly. It was at the start of CNN when they used to do Sports Tonight with Nick Charles and Fred Hickman. Remember that duo?
Of course.
And this was literally when CNN first started. And Fred Hickman ultimately went on to be one of the starting broadcasters of the Yes Network.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Fred Hickman.
66, young man,
Yeah, I remember Fred Hickman.
Absolutely. Nick Charles, and back then it was Craig Sager and all those guys. But I thought Sports Tonight was one of the shows you and I used to always. That's where we got our information from.
Yeah. R.I.P. Fred Hickman.
Yep. Steve, from the world of music, and again, we wouldn't classify ourselves as country music, but this band Alabama was very big. Jeff Cook, one of the original founders and lead guitarist of them, was 73 years old. That's a big loss in country music. Alabama was good band.
Alabama had a lot of hits in the 80s.
Yeah. And, when we're talking about music, and I'm making light of it, but it's something you saw coming, this Aaron Carter, who was the younger brother of Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, who, by the way, I went to see like 30 years ago with my kids. It was funny. But he was 34 years old, just couldn't overcome this substance abuse problem. So it's a life cut short.
Yeah.
And how about this from the world of comedy? Gallagher, one of your favorites, right? The watermelon skit with the sledgehammer, right? So everyone in the front row got soaked with.
Well, the only thing about Gallagher is I have a dear friend from Boston University named Robert Goldsmith. And guess who Goldsmith looked like?
Gallagher.
I swear, folks, I have never seen Gallagher for more than 4 seconds.
With the newsboy cap and all that, right?
Yeah. My point is Gallagher wasn't for me, but I still RIP. I've never seen Gallagher for more than 5 seconds.
Exactly. But the guy made a living doing this goofy little bit on stage, and I don't know how old he was. I don't know. I think he was in his late 60s, something maybe early 70s. But I saw that and I go, "Oh, Gallagher!" It's not like losing Norm Macdonald, where the world of comedy
No, it's
suffers.
not.
Everybody suffers when that loss happened, right? Anyway, so Steve, it's high school football. I wanted to give a shout out and a happy birthday to Ms. Lucia Robles, my dear partner, and today's her birthday.
Happy birthday, Lucy.
Yep. And Giants are back playing tomorrow. There's a lot going on in sports. Please send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. And Rob, enjoy your day at Seton Hall watching college basketball. High school football, St. Joe's has got a second round quarterfinals game in the state playoffs
Against the Seton Hall Pirates high school team.
As ironic as that. So things are going on, and again, one last time is an absolute special shout out to the veterans, and had an opportunity to go to your hometown of Oakland and just had a moment to speak with a World War II veteran, which is always something that just makes my knees buckle, to be quite honest.
No doubt. Thank you for your service, all the best.
Absolutely. And we'll see you guys next week. Steve, have a good weekend and enjoy the beautiful weather today.
You too, Jim.
See you, Rob.
Bye.